The Causeway Heartbeat. The alien stood alone on the giant's causeway, its silhouette sharp against the Atlantic dusk. Beneath its feet, the hexagonal stones shuddered, then shifted, flattening into a perfect platform as if obeying a silent command. A shimmering mirage rose around the creature, bending the air like heat above tarmac. In a blink, the alien dissolved into nothing. The stones snapped back to their familiar uneven pattern, postcard perfect. Jim and Pete stared at the recording on Jim's iPhone, both still breathless. "You got all that?" Jim whispered. Pete nodded, hands shaking. Every second. They ran to their battered 80s Vauxhall, lit cigarettes with trembling fingers, and sat in stunned silence. "Bloody hell, mate. So now what? We can't just stick this on YouTube. No chance." Buried evidence back at Jim's garage. They made 5 copies of the video, sealed each USB stick in watertight bags, and buried them across different locations like paranoid treasure hunters. The iPhone was wiped clean. The next morning, they returned to the causeway. Tourists posed for photos, oblivious. When the crowd thinned, Jim and Pete combed the stones for anything unusual. Nothing. An old man walking his dog paused beside them. "It's cool on the stones, no?" he said casually, then walked on. Jim and Pete exchanged a look. Something about the man's tone unsettled them, but they shrugged it off. Hours passed. Nothing. They went home defeated. The sound of stone. Later, slumped on Jim's garage sofa with lagers in hand, they watched a documentary about resonant frequencies in Egyptian pyramids, tuning forks, harmonics, vibrations. Pete sat up. "Jim, the sound forks." The next day, armed with a tuning fork, they returned to the causeway. Each ping on the stones produced a slightly different tone, shifting subtly as they moved toward the center. But apart from the steady 128 Hz hum, nothing dramatic. A schoolboy wandered past. "You won't hear a heartbeat," he said. "Stones are dead things." He ran off. Pete stared at Jim. "Heartbeat." Jim nodded slowly. "A frequency, a rhythm. The heartbeat." Weeks passed. Then one night, Pete burst into the garage, wild-eyed. "Jim, causeway, now!" "What happened? Did you rob a bank?" "Just drive." They arrived to find a tour group lingering. They waited until after midnight, when the causeway finally emptied. Pete set up his laptop, connected a strange antenna rig to his modified iPhone, and positioned Jim in the center of the stones. "Hold it straight down, left a bit. Perfect. Right, what's the plan? I'm going to induce frequencies into the stones, maybe trigger whatever we saw, maybe a portal." Jim sighed. "Grand, let's do it." Pete cycled through frequencies like tuning an old radio. Then, wait, go back. The stones beneath Jim shimmered. Pete's face drained of color. "Jim, you're changing." "What?" "You're turning into that alien." Jim looked at his hands, translucent, flickering, shifting into the same form they'd seen vanish months earlier. "Pete, I feel fine." The hologram. They quickly discovered the truth. The alien wasn't physical. It was a hologram projected by the stones, activated by a precise frequency. When they stabilized the antenna, the figure reappeared, this time moving, gesturing silently as if addressing an unseen audience, with Jim standing right in the middle of the light projection. "What's he saying?" Jim murmured. Before Pete could answer, a policeman tapped Jim's shoulder. "Public performances on landmarks require permission. I'm giving you a warning." The hologram flickered out. "That was close," Pete muttered. "Think he'll report it?" "Nah, he's done with us." They packed up their gear. Jim looked back at the causeway, at the ancient stones humming with secrets. "We'll figure out the sound problem, and we'll come back for you, wee green man." The Atlantic wind carried the low hum of the stones, steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat.